Wealth building with technology. What are the two fastest ways to make money in technology? Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. So let's start off with the most promising, healthcare technology assisted by artificial intelligence. An example, abridge.com has only been around for a few years. It was started by a cardiologist, a doctor. It's worth $5.3 billion. And the idea is pretty straightforward. Basically, doctors use abridge.com to interview patients. The application books an appointment and then uses AI to find stuff that matches with the patient's health issue, worth $5.3 billion. With just a little AI added in there, an otherwise pretty straightforward concept. You know, a doctor could bring a tape recorder in and tape the conversation and then have someone transcribe it later. But instead, this application plays that role. It takes the notes of the conversation, makes an appointment, and then uses AI to find relevant information to help with that patient's issue. It's worth quite a bit of money. So there's a lot of opportunity in healthcare technology with AI. This is sort of, I guess, ground floor because ChatGPT has only been out for, I think, like 3 years now. So why is healthcare technology such a winner? Okay, why is this getting first place in this video, building wealth through technology? Most important thing is healthcare is a need. It's not a want. It's not a trip to a restaurant. It's not going to an amusement park. It's not a summer vacation. Healthcare taps into the survival instinct of humans, which is the strongest instinct we have. Healthcare is probably the strongest need we all share. Everyone, not just a few people. Everyone has this need. And there are so many different segments and opportunities in healthcare. This is just a few. Prenatal care, elder care, pediatrics, psychiatry, orthopedics, that's, bones, heart and lungs, surgery, genetics, just, dozens and dozens of different areas in healthcare. They're all needed. They're not wants. I guess one exception to that would be plastic surgery, right? Usually that's a want, although after accidents, that can be a need also. But AI has not been around that long, right? So every one of these areas, there's like 100 or something different segments in healthcare, and each of them have their own differences and unique opportunities. AI has not been around that long. Now is the time to plug AI solutions into these different areas in healthcare. This is sort of the ground floor. That's why healthcare tech is probably the best opportunity, the fastest way to make money. I mean, this doctor started this just a few years ago, and he's making bank. He's making out quite well. So if you're interested in a ground floor opportunity, in a need, not a want, healthcare tech is a huge winner. Most of healthcare tech is not saturated yet with AI. Eventually it probably will be, but for now it's not. So it's a really ripe area, healthcare tech, to take risk to try to build wealth through technology. So here's an idea. Find 5 small health tech firms, 5 small ones, combine them, grow the revenue, then sell the combination to private equity. That's probably a quick several $1 million right there. To find the 5 small health tech firms, you can look online for businesses for sale, for example, because a lot of these, they're not going to have an established AI process in them yet. That's kind of what we're talking about here. Find 5 small healthcare tech firms that don't have a lot of artificial intelligence applied to them yet, and combine them. Now, how would you do this? What's the practical side of this? You'd have to find like-minded people who are willing to take a risk with you, because if you're going to acquire these tech firms, you're going to need to be able to buy them out. So that's why finding 5 small healthcare tech firms is emphasized, because the smaller they are, the cheaper you'll be able to acquire them for. So you could find a group of 5 people total and pool some money and start buying these, grow the revenue, and then sell to private equity. So here's another spin on healthcare technology wealth building. One of the biggest problems with healthcare is the cost. The costs to patients and the cost to doctors, the costs, the expenses for clinics, for hospitals, for private practices. Identify 10 areas that you can reduce costs in. As an example, apply artificial intelligence to reduce needless costs in private practice, doctors' offices. If you can start reducing costs for doctors, that is measurable. And if it's measurable, it can be valued. The value can be established of the reduced expenses. So that puts a target number on what the value created is, and you can sell that. You'd have to find costs to cut out of the doctor's office. There's probably a lot of them. As an example, a lot of doctors have monthly subscriptions for their technology. They sign up for something, they forget about it, they never use it. If they have staff turnover, they forget to train the new staff on the technology they've got, the computer system they have. They stop using parts of it, but they still are paying the monthly cost for the subscription. So a lot of doctors have several of those. So that would be one area you could go in and boom, 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 eliminate all those monthly expenses for doctors' offices across the United States. That would be valuable. So let's see here. Another thing you can do for both clinics and private practices, increase the number of new patients for a growing private practice. A doctor who's not been long out of med school. Increasing the foot traffic of new patients into their practice, and the same for clinics, for larger clinics, collections of doctors. Increase the number of customers. Increase the number. Have AI tech that will intelligently lead new patients to the doors of your clients. That's measurable too, because the increased revenue of those doctors can be measured, and if it can be measured, it can have a value put on it. So it's sellable. You've got something you can sell. Another thing doctors struggle with, especially now because a lot of them are busy, is patient satisfaction and patient retention. If you had an application with AI applied to it that could increase a doctor's patient retention, so they don't have as much turnover of patients, you'd have to measure patient satisfaction. That could be measured too, because the doctor could look over time, their churn rate, the number of patients they lose, starts to drop, and their practice is growing in size because they're adding new people and they're not losing as many of their existing clients. So another thing that doctors struggle with is malpractice and insurance. If you can find a way to apply AI to either negotiate lower malpractice expenses and reduce insurance costs, that's measurable. So it can be valued. So you've got something you can sell there. You've got some technology that's AI enabled, that's saving doctors money that you can sell. Or you could sell to private equity, or you could be acquired. So the probably the fastest way to do this is to find an existing early player in one of these areas that saves doctors money, and take a minority stake, get on their cap table, their capitalization table. When you invest in one of these early players, you're not actively involved in running the operation. You can have your own line of work. Obviously, you're just providing some capital for that early player, and then you're on their cap table. And if they grow and they succeed, you can make a nice return. Let's see here. And another thing you could do, instead of investing in an existing early player that's trying to save doctors costs, you could start one of your own, especially if you're in the healthcare field already, because you have some inside knowledge that outsiders lack. So you could put together a team of people who are not drawing a salary, but implement some AI product that you can test yourself because you're actually in the healthcare field. You can verify it works. Then you can find alpha testers, really early stage users of your AI enabled application, then beta testers, and then finally you can start charging for your application. And as your monthly recurring revenue grows, your startup becomes more and more valuable, and you can either be acquired or keep growing, and then maybe, if things work out, you can have an IPO. Okay, so applied AI. This is idea number 2. Healthcare tech is huge. It's a huge opportunity. Artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, et cetera, has not been around long enough to saturate healthcare with AI. So there's a lot of opportunity. Another opportunity is applied artificial intelligence in key areas. Cybersecurity is supposed to grow to a $60 billion market or more in the next 3 years. It's like $22 billion right now. So it's really growing like gangbusters. And the reason is there have been a lot, it's become easier and easier with AI for thieves to use AI to hack into systems and to cause financial loss for companies, and for individuals. So cybersecurity is going to grow along with the criminal element that's using AI. So there's a big opportunity there that's applying AI to a specific area of cybersecurity to defeat people who are hacking into systems and creating loss for innocent people. Finance is another hot area. And as an example, artificial intelligence for 55 plus seniors. AI has not been around long enough for there to be a lot of options for older people. A lot of those folks don't really, they're not necessarily computer phobic, but they didn't, they didn't grow up, they grew up sort of too soon to be super familiar and comfortable with AI. Not all of them, but there's an opportunity there for AI to help 55 and older citizens with their finances because they're getting close to retirement. Artificial intelligence in finance, that's just one example though, 55 plus seniors. Another applied AI opportunity, robotics. And what I would say here is autonomous machines, right? Because it's one thing to have autonomous self-driving cars, but if you think about it, if AI can be used to automate cars, which are very complicated, especially because they're out on the road surrounded by other vehicles and other obstacles, then almost any machine you can think of could have autonomy applied to it, and it could potentially become more valuable. So we're in the really early days of autonomous machines. This is sort of a ground floor opportunity for applying artificial intelligence in a new way. So when I was teaching, I taught at UC Santa Cruz. I taught technology for about 5 years. And here's what I used to tell my students. If you're actively involved in technology and you have some experience, because startups make it sometimes and then other times they don't make it, you could spend a 10-year period of your time working at 5 different startups, 2 years each. Because the chances are, if you work at 5 different startups, the odds are in your favor that one of them will have an IPO, maybe 2, if you choose wisely. So if you have technology expertise and enough to be hired at a startup, because usually startups are selective, they want people who are experienced, then that would be a strategy. You could say to yourself, I'm going to work at 5 different startups over the next 10 years. I'm going to work at for 2 years at each one and get pre-IPO stock options. Okay, now what does that mean? Pre-IPO is before the company goes public. Stock options are options to buy that company's stock at a really low price. Pre-IPO stock options are a way to get really rich in technology. So if you, over a 10-year period, you could start when you're right out of college, age 22, if you're experienced enough. When I was in college, there were a lot of students who had been working with software for over a decade, and they were already doing consulting while we were in college. And others, everything was new. But there were some people, when they graduated, they already had like 5 years experience consulting, right? So if you're one of those people, you could start at age 21 or 22. By the time you're 32, you will, if you follow this approach, you'd have probably at least one startup that went IPO and made you rich. So if you have any questions about this, I wanted to mention this because ChatGPT has not been out that long. Healthcare tech is a huge opportunity. And there's not a saturation of artificial intelligence in healthcare yet, so there's a lot of opportunity there. Even if you're an outsider, you can do consulting. You could pick up a certification from Google or other places. You could get a certification over a 3 or 6 month period in some area of AI and start a consulting practice. When you are a consultant, the people who hire you, you'll inadvertently learn about things that are up and coming in that area. And you can use that knowledge to then, you can continue consulting, but you can also start a business related to something is growing because you've been getting hired as a consultant in that area. So that's the way a lot of people figure out how what to start. They do consulting first, and then they learn from the companies hiring them what is hot, what is up and coming, where the opportunity is, and they use that to their advantage to start their own company. So, but the 5 startups in 10 years idea is almost surefire that with artificial intelligence, especially if it's in healthcare, that it's going to be a winner. So if you have any questions about this, I'd be happy to answer any questions you post in the comments. And I really want to thank everyone for watching, and have a great day.